הניסים ועל הברכן ועל הגבורות ועל התשועות ועל הנפלאות, על הניסים ועל הברכן ועל הגבורות ועל התשועות ועל הנפלאות שעשית לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה, בזמן הזה שעשית לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה.
Welcome to Jewish Life, a program presented in cooperation with the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York. I'm your host, Stewart Ain. Every week, we present programs of particular interest to the Jewish community. Today, we're going to be speaking about the outbreak of anti-Semitism worldwide since the Hamas deadly attack in Israel on October 7th. My guest is Charles Small. He's founder and director of the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy. It's the first international interdisciplinary research center dedicated to the study of anti-Semitism with a contemporary focus. Welcome to the program. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
So, I mean, we've never seen, that I can remember, an outbreak of anti-Semitism worldwide such as this. The ADL says that there's been an increase of 388% over the same period last year, and it's worldwide. Do you recall anything like this?
I don't want to sound pessimistic, but look, I think that we're living in a crisis, a global economic crisis. I think for the last decades, the disparities between rich and poor have been increasing. Governments and states have been failing around the world. There's a refugee crisis. Refugees are coming into Europe and the United States from the periphery, from third world countries. And our institutions have been weakened for all sorts of reasons, which I won't get into. But I think in this economic crisis, we have extremist organizations that are growing. The radical left is attacking the democratic center. The radical right and white supremacy is attacking the democratic center. And we've known for the last several decades, as states are failing in the so-called Islamic world, in the Middle East, North Africa, Southeast Asia, that political Islam is growing and filling a vacuum. And what these three very different reactionary social movements have in common is their disdain for the Jewish people and for the state of Israel. And their anti-Semitism is the fuel for their movement. And people are using it, especially political Islam, in a masterful way, and have created an alliance with the radical left. The radical left is opposed to American power and American hegemony and Western power. The political Islamists want to rid the Islamic world of anything that's foreign, Jews, Christians, Europeans, etc. And their anti-hegemonic, anti-Western ideology in political Islam is very much connected to the radical left's agenda of weakening the West, and so they're using anti-Semitism. They're focusing on Israel to gain sympathy, and we've now seen an explosion not only in the Middle East, where Iran is orchestrating the military endeavors and efforts of Hamas and Hezbollah, and their paymasters Qatar, which is part of the Muslim Brotherhood and a great ally of the United States. And for decades, the United States, American universities have been taking money from the Muslim Brotherhood and from Qatar, and their goal is to weaken the West. And we can see in our best universities, in the classroom, forget on the campus, leading intellectuals demonizing Israel for the last several decades. And this has gone on unchecked, and our community has been asleep. And here we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's come down to the day Hamas attacked Israel, October 7th, 2023. Two young men were shoved a Jewish boy to the ground in Brooklyn. In Rockland County, an assailant fired a BB gun at two women on the way to synagogue. And the following day, 3 Jewish men were shot with a BB gun in Brooklyn. So, I mean, this is the stuff on the ground happening to regular Jewish people, kids and adults.
Yeah. It's horrific. And, you know, at some level, if a thug attacks a person because they hate a group, it's despicable, but we kind of understand that in society there are thugs. We kind of get them. They've been around for a long time. But when our leading intellectuals, philosophers, social thinkers at NYU, at Columbia, right, at CUNY, in New York City, in the United States of America, New York City, one of the most important international cities in the world, multicultural, democratic, with a strong, vibrant, maybe the strongest vibrant Jewish community ever in a diaspora. And when this is happening in New York, when our children are being locked into libraries, when students at these elite universities are going over to Jewish students and going like this to Jewish boys and girls and saying that you are going to be, what happened in the south of Israel is going to happen here. Going up to female students at NYU and Columbia and whispering to female students that they're going to be raped, just like the Israelis were raped. This is at our elite universities. And our community has been silent, and certainly the administration of universities have not only permitted this to happen, they've actually encouraged this to happen, because their intellectuals in the Middle East Studies Department, in the social sciences and the humanities, have been demonizing Israel and the Jewish people for decades. And they have acquiesced and aided and abetted it by taking money from the Brotherhood. I went to Oxford University. Yosef Kawadawi, who was the head of the Muslim Brotherhood, a reactionary movement that fuses a very reactionary form of Islam with European anti-Semitism. They take the protocols of the elders of Zion. This is what the Nazis used. These were the words. Elie Wiesel always taught us that the Holocaust didn't start with the crematoriums and the railroad tracks. They started with words and ideas. And the words and ideas that laid the foundation for Nazism and the final solution are the same words and ideas that are being used by the Brotherhood and its offshoots, the Iranian Revolutionary Regime, Hezbollah, Hamas, and have demonized Jewish people. And not only do they want to destroy Israel, they call for the liquidation of Jews all over the world. So Yosef Kawadawi always preached, based in Qatar, that the true believer is obligated to finish the work of Hitler. Okay? Now, he's a thug. He's a reactionary thug, but he's very important in the Islamic world. They held by his rulings. This thug became the first director of Islamic studies at Oxford University. This is the people that Oxford and Cambridge and the Sorbonne and the Ivy Leagues, they took money from these thugs. And then they scratch their heads and see what is happening on the campus to Jewish students and faculty. And they even have to lock down their colleges because they're afraid of security in New York City, at Harvard, in the United States of America.
I have a whole bunch of examples. At Pomona College in California, a Jewish student was assaulted while walking past a Students for Justice in Palestine rally on campus. At Rutgers in New Jersey, a user of the social media platform Yik Yak threatened the life of a member of a Jewish fraternity, saying, "Palestinian protesters, there is an Israeli at AEPI, go kill him." At the University of Georgia, a member of the Jewish fraternity was assaulted, and the perpetrator said, "You Israeli, I'm going to murder you and your family." At the University of Cincinnati, a Jewish student wearing a necklace with Hebrew letters was harassed by a group of students who said, "You should throw that necklace in the trash where your people belong." At Cooper Union in New York, a group of Jewish students were locked inside their school library due to an ongoing pro-Hamas protest going on outside. The kids actually were banging on the door of the library, and at the direction of the campus security, they were told to escape through a back entrance of the library. An Israeli student was hit with a stick at Columbia University. An assailant shoved an unidentified a Jewish woman in Manhattan while shouting, "This pig has got to go." a man punched a woman in Manhattan subway, saying it was because she was Jewish. Then there was a banner at the Stephen Wise Free Synagogue. It was all curses. And at the Second Avenue Deli, it was defaced with the swastika. Somebody actually etched the swastika in the side of the store. And it goes on and on. I mean, it's just,
Look,
yes.
I'm originally from Montreal, and I was in Montreal last weekend. I had to pay my respects to a family friend, Shiva, and all the people I grew up with, the friends that I grew up with. I would say 75% of my friends, in the last few weeks, their homes have been photographed. People in Montreal who have homes with mezuzahs. There are people driving up and down the streets with Arabic music all hours of the day, 24 hours a day, taking pictures of Jewish homes as a form of intimidation. Now, what makes all of this sick, all the many examples that you read, and tragically, it's just a tiny tip of the iceberg. This is pervasive now in North America, and it's even worse in Europe, in the UK, in France, and beyond. What we have to remember is this upsurge in hatred happened after a pogrom, after one of the largest pogroms ever, the largest massacre of Jewish people since the Holocaust. So this is happening after a pogrom, after a group of people were attempting to commit a genocide to wipe Israel off the map. So for thugs, for intellectuals, for students at our best universities to then take this and then become energized, and to, energized was, I'm quoting now a professor at Cornell University who said he was energized to see the decolonization of the occupation of the apartheid state. Okay, so the Nazis tried to hide the final solution. These people filmed it to disseminate it to get support. And they're getting support. And I can understand getting support among Islamists or white supremacist Nazis or radical left communists, okay. But from intellectuals, some of them Jewish intellectuals. This is
Jewish intellectuals? Jewish intellectuals are what, fostering the...
Oh, you have somebody like Judith Butler, a Jewish feminist, gay, intellectual superstar, who actually argues that Hamas and Hezbollah must be understood as the progressive global left. Now, Judith Butler is a serious international thinker and philosopher. She has a big following in the academy, and Edward Said said in 1983 that he was the last, he's Palestinian, he's the last remaining Jewish intellectual. He inherited the Frankfurt School, Adorno, Horkheimer, Hannah Arendt. He was the last heir of sort of Jewish intellectuals fighting fascism and Nazism. He said he's the last Jewish intellectual, and that the Jewish professors in New York are getting fat in the suburbs and they've become scribes, and that the Palestinians are the Jews, and the Jews and the Israelis are the Nazis. When he said this in 1983, people thought he was crazy, outlandish. But look, this is the zeitgeist. This is the way people are thinking today. You have a democratic state of Israel, and you have little Nazi-inspired Islamists, and the intellectuals have sided with the thugs. But I have to say the good news, I have to be a little bit positive. And the good news is, look, President Biden and the United States, they seem to be stepping up. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, the President of France, the Prime Minister of Italy, Germany. We have friends and allies. Saudi Arabia just intercepted missiles coming from Yemen into Israel. They intercepted it. And we have to remember that these thugs have launched the war because they understood that Israel and Saudi Arabia were on the verge of a peace agreement. And, the king, the head of MBS recently said 2 days ago that once the war is over, he hopes to resume the peace process. So I think if the United States is strong and Israel is strong, this is a moment of war. It's horrible. It's really horrible. But hopefully peace will emerge afterwards. So we're not alone, but this intellectual political environment is really disturbing.
You mentioned Austria. there's been a 300% increase in Austria in terms of anti-Semitic incidents, to a 641% spike in the UK. That's what do I say? What they believe that all Jews should be wiped off the earth? Is that how bad it is?
I don't think they all believe that. Some of them do. But look, on another, I'll be positive. I'm not always positive, but I'll try. Look, 4 weeks ago, the Jewish people were profoundly divided. Jewish people.
Oh, in Israel. Yeah.
Not only in Israel, around the world too. We forgot to respect our beauty, our differences, our diversity. We forgot to use Jewish ethics to respect our own people. How many times did you hear people say this one is too secular, or this one's too religious, or this one's too left-wing, or this one's too right-wing, or this party's corrupt, or that party's corrupt? We were on the verge of a horrible situation in Israel, but also in the United States as well. And I think the level of assimilation, or people hiding their identities up until a month ago and trying to fit in and get by, and that's changed. I think we're more united, we're stronger than ever. So maybe in this horrible situation, there's a silver lining, and this is a miracle and a blessing.
You think even those who wanted, even those who wanted to hide their Jewishness are now proclaiming it? Really?
I was with some professors at NYU yesterday, and I met two who said they became Jewish on October the 9th when they came into their office and they saw their colleagues and their students saying what they said. They realized one was Israeli, one was American, that they're Jewish, and they're standing with us. The people have been mugged. The famous French sociologist Raymond Aron in 1968 said, in every generation, Jewish intellectuals are mugged. Well, October 7th, or maybe Monday, October the 9th, when we came back to work, a lot of us were mugged.
I know that Haredi are now joining the military, Israeli military, the IDF. At least 2,000, the last I heard. These are people
2,000 what?
Haredi, the ultra-Orthodox, who never before wanted to be in the military, and they were told, okay, you don't have to go in. Well, now they're volunteering.
Yeah, and some are getting in, and many want to try to get in, and they don't qualify. Even the call-up, they called up about 300,000 reserve soldiers.
Yes.
Over 350,000 reported for duty. There's nowhere else in the world would this happen. So yes, we're united. Yes. And when the Jewish people are united, as we know, there's nothing we cannot do.
Yes, and they called up people in the United States, and there were so many people trying to get on a plane. I heard that in one instance, at least one, El Al allowed the reservists to sit on the floor of the plane because they didn't have enough seats. So everybody rushed to get back. Yeah,
it's a beautiful thing. So if we're united and strong, there's nothing we cannot do. From the ashes of the Holocaust, from Mizrahi Jews being kicked out of their countries for where they lived for many, many generations and lived in tents in Israel. Look what we did. One of the strongest economies in the world, strongest military in the world, the technology that we've given the world, the medical devices and cures. Look what we've done. So if we're united, there's nothing we cannot do.
So do you think? What do you think is behind this? Because you see Hamas trying to wipe out the Jews, and then instead of the world saying, "How can you do this?" everybody's saying, "Yeah, they're in support of Hamas." Do they understand what they're saying?
Look, in Jewish ethics, if you commit a crime knowingly, the punishment is more severe than if you commit a crime, unwittingly. Maybe the punishment is less if you don't know, but you're still punished. And look, this is anti-Semitism. And anti-Semitism, as we know, is deeply rooted in Western civilization. And we had a reprieve for a generation or a generation and a half. Things were good. And I think they can still be good. But, these messages are deeply rooted in our society. And there's something sadistic about this. That I think people are kind of enjoying sort of punishing the Jews, making fun of the Jews, picking on the Jews. There's something sadistic happening here that's reminiscent of the Nazi era. The images of Jewish people in Vienna and in Berlin washing the sidewalks, and Hasidic religious Jews getting their beards cut off, and you have these crowds of people sitting around laughing. It's a little bit like this. I think people are enjoying seeing Jewish faculty and students on campuses uncomfortable, and Israelis being harmed. There's sick people are getting enjoyment out of this, and this is anti-Semitism.
No, I do you recall anything like this in your lifetime?
No, not in our lifetime. Thank God, not in our lifetime. But look, we know where we come from. We know our history. We know what Israel is to the Jewish people, what it means to us politically, militarily, culturally, religiously. For a Jew to be free, we have to be connected to our land. We know this. And we have to stay strong. We have to know who we are. And, there's a philosopher that I did some work with, and, he said a basic expression of power is the ability to express your identity, to express to the world, to define yourself. And we have to, in the United States of America, where the Jewish community is prominent and powerful in this democratic country, we've had a hard time in the last several decades defining ourselves. Are we Jewish? Are we white? Are we not white? This was the discourse in our community. And we have to remember that the Nazis defined us as not white. And we were poisoning the purity of the white Aryan race. And this is why this racist anti-Semitism, we had to be eliminated to save the white Aryan nation. And then you have these clowns at universities, these intellectuals who are now saying Jews are white. And they're not telling us you're white, welcome to the club, and we're sorry for what happened. No. Now we've replaced their parents and their grandparents and their ancestors, and they've labeled us as the quintessential white supremacist, racist, occupier, colonializer, and even apartheid supporter. It's outlandish. And many of us in the academy and the media of record, we were apologetic. We're different. We were civil rights activists. I was an anti-apartheid activist. We're good Jews. We're good Zionists. The days of us apologizing, the days of us having to explain who we are to people who have the chutzpah to identify us, to define us. Those days should be over. Jews should stand up as Jewish people based on who we are, based on our ethics, based on our definitions of what it means to be Jewish. And Jewish is not a race. We can't see ourselves through the lens of race. We're a people, we're a nation. Some of us are blonde hair and blue eyes. Some of us are African. Some of us are Asian. The Jews that experienced the most disgusting forms of racism were Ashkenazi Jews, which the clowns in the university say are white elitists. It's insane.
Khalid Mashal, a leader of Hamas, who was in Doha, he a few weeks ago, I guess a week after this whole thing started, put out a request that there be a day of rage or some kind of unrest against the Jews. And there was an advice put out that Jews who have a Star of David or a mezuzah that they're wearing, take it off. Put on a hat instead of a kippah. Try to conceal who you are in terms of you're Jewish. What did you think about that advice?
Look, two things. First of all, the fact that this orchestrator of a pogrom is sitting in a 6-star hotel in Qatar, which has a US military base, Qatar, which gives hundreds of billions of dollars to American universities, some of it legally, some of it illegally. The fact that our ally, the United States of America's ally, is hosting in 6-star hotels people who orchestrated a pogrom the fact, and these are the leadership of Hamas, the fact that the Qatari regime, an ally of the United States, paid for that pogrom.
Yeah, they would every month brought money, cash,
Yes.
to the Gaza Strip and gave them the money every month.
So it's time for your listeners to write to your leaders, your congressmen, your senators, to the White House. The relationship with the United States of America and Qatar needs to end. They are weakening this democratic country by funding universities and sowing the seeds of discontent and even violence on our streets. They are using anti-Semitism to weaken the United States of America and democratic countries. This has to stop. We should call for a boycott, a divestment of Qatar, of Muslim Brotherhood. It's ridiculous. This is the problem. And then the second part to your question is, I don't think Jewish people should be ashamed or afraid. We have to stand strong. If we're strong, if we're united, nobody will mess with us.
So we're the mezuzah. We're the Star of David.
Yes, we're the keeper. We're still in a democracy. You know, you should be vigilant. You should be, know about security and the resources in your community. But I think in the United States, we're safe and we have to be strong, and we live in a democracy.
But it's a good idea for Jewish institutions to hire security guards.
Tragically, yes, I think it's unfortunately a necessity. Yeah, and we should be vigilant, but not weak.
Yeah. So, what would any other advice do you have to Jewish institutions and individuals?
I think we have to stop apologizing for who we are. I think we have to call on our elected officials to put an end to the thugs on our street, to the thugs that are funding our universities and sowing the seeds of discontent and hatred and division in the United States of America. They're out to weaken the United States of America. We have to call for the end of any relations with Qatar because they're sowing the seeds. They're hosting pogroms. That's against international law. Qatar needs to extradite the Hamas leaders, the people who are funding and carrying out the pogrom. That's our advice. Be strong. They're calling for a divestment from Israel. We should call for a divestment from Qatar, from Iran. It's enough.
And the people in the institutions, the professors in the colleges. What do you do with these folks?
Look, I think that we should call for Columbia, for NYU, for Harvard, for Yale, Georgetown, all these universities that took money from organizations that openly and clearly call not only for the destruction of Israel, but for the murder of Jews, that they've taken billions of dollars from these places, and it's affected our curriculum. It's affected the way young people learn at our best universities and how to be citizens. And it has to stop. I think if there's lawyers listening to you, we should have a class action suit against universities, or a civil suit, if not a criminal suit. They're taking money. They're not. If you go to our website, we've done studies on this. I'm not just saying this. We've documented tens of billions of dollars going to universities. We just found at Texas A&M, for example. We found $1.5 billion in undocumented money coming from Qatar. We've located 502 research projects at Texas A&M funded by Qatar. 502 research projects. And in this we have the agreement that Qatar has with Texas A&M. Qatar owns all of the intellectual property rights for the research projects, including research at the nuclear reactor research lab at Los Alamos, which is connected to Texas A&M. They own intellectual property rights from nuclear research. How's that possible?
Charles Small, he is the founder and director of the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy. We thank you so much for joining us. Interesting look at what's happening today in the world on the issue of anti-Semitism. Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
This has been Jewish Life. My name is Stewart Ain. Until next week, have a good one.